Well, good morning again. Welcome to the webinar. And let me introduce myself. My name is Randir Raghunath. I'm a training manager at Bodhi Training Solutions Private Limited. And I'll be the host for this webinar today. The topic, as I'm aware all of you know, is dealing with difficult people, right? So before we proceed, I'm just looking up at my chat window. I see that a couple of people are having trouble hearing me. Well, I have a response from most of the participants that they have been able to hear me. Shiva, have you been able to, have you plugged in maybe a earphone or a headphone, or could you check the audio on the phone or on the device that you're using? Because I have confirmation that most of the other participants are able to hear us. If you're still having trouble, I'll have the organizer kind of get in touch with you and see how we can help you with this, right? Please respond on the chat window if you are still unable to hear Shiva. All right. So before we proceed, I'd like to request all the participants to, put yourself on mute from your side. And in case you want to get in touch with me, ask me any questions, or have any issues with the webinar itself, unable to hear us or not able to see the screen, or any other issues, you can just use the chat option, post your question, and we'll be happy to kind of help you with that, right? So keeping in mind the time, I'm going to start the webinar, right? So before we move on, I think it's important that we understand what Bodhi does and how we help individuals and corporates. So to tell you a little about Bodhi, right? So we have been in the industry for a little over 9 years now, and we specialize in providing training solutions and organizational development solutions to corporates as well as individuals. And we primarily work in the 5 verticals listed here, which are sales, leadership, HR, communication, and soft skills. So we conduct trainings, and we also work with corporates across industries as well as a lot of public workshops that we do for individuals. To tell you a little about our quality credential, we are an ISO certified company. We've been certified by an elite German body called TÜV. Now this means that all the processes that we follow, right from content development to delivery, right, follow strict guidelines set by the ISO organizations. Okay. So how is the training experience with Bodhi unique, right? Now, our focus is to make sure that all the training programs and workshops that we conduct are result-based, and they are based on experiential learning and hands-on approach. And how we do that is using our structured framework based approach to training. And we have tried and tested methodologies for the entire training cycle, right? We are able to provide attention not just to groups but also individuals during our training workshops, and we have been successful in building training competencies across industries, and we've ensured organizational development all over, right? So let's move on to the agenda of the day, which is dealing with difficult people, right? Now, just by looking at the interest that we saw in this topic and the number of participants who have logged in, it shows that this is something that is so common, right? All of us come across people who are difficult. It could be in our personal lives, at home, among your friend circle. It's difficult to call them friends, they are difficult. And also primarily at work, right? So this webinar kind of looks at exploring how one can deal with such situations, right? we want you to go back with some amount of information that will help you recognize difficult people and also give you strategies that will help you deal with them. Okay, so let's look at the agenda for the day. We're going to start by understanding, first of all, why are people difficult, right? What makes people difficult, right? What can be the reasons why someone is the way they are. Correct. So we will also look at the types of difficult people. Now we have been able to categorize people based on certain behaviors that they exhibit. Okay. Now this may be a generalization for sure, and they can be n number of categories. And if you were to do research on a topic like this, you will notice that there are several creative names that are used to describe certain groups of people, right? So we'll try and explore a few common ones, and maybe after the session you will be able to come up with your own categories and strategies, right? So we'll look at the types of difficult people that are most common, and we'll also explore the strategies that will help you deal with such people and such situations. Okay. And finally, we'll close the webinar with any questions that you may have. Okay, so throughout the session, in case you have any questions related to any specific slide or any particular point that we are discussing, please feel free to post your questions on the chat window. I'll be more than happy to address them. In case the questions are common, I will wait probably for a time until most of the questions have been gathered up, and then I'll definitely try and answer as many as I can. Right. So let's start. Okay. Now, difficult people, right? Now they are everywhere. Now, it's also possible that we are also among the difficult people. We may have never looked at ourselves that way, and maybe everyone is difficult during certain moments, right? And either way, we will need to live or work with such a person whom you find difficult, right? And that's the reality. And being able to handle unreasonable and difficult people is truly an art, right? And using the right skills, what will happen is you will be maybe able to experience less grief while dealing with such people in such situations. You may come out with greater confidence, right, the next time you're facing such a situation, and the end result, you will be able to build better relationships both in your personal life as well as your and your professional environment as well. Right. Now, the most important question we want to ask is, why are people difficult? Right. We are easy to point fingers and bucketize or categorize people into saying, okay, this is a difficult person. I don't like this person. This is the way someone reacts all the time. Right. But what we need to kind of understand is very few people are inherently rude or mean, right? But there are people who certainly are most of the time. And usually when a person is rude, or if you're terming them as a challenging person or a difficult person, there is always a reason, right? So let's look at some of the reasons why people may be difficult. And what I would like you to do is see if these reasons kind of apply to you or your situation as well. Right? Now, before I move on, I just want to check with Shiva. Shiva, you had told us that you weren't able to hear the audio. Has that changed? Are you able to hear us now? You can respond with a yes on the chat window, Shiva. Fantastic. Great. Okay. Okay. So we were talking about the reasons that make people difficult. Now, keep an open mind when you're looking at these reasons, and I welcome you to share a few reasons, on the chat window. I'll be happy to share them with the rest of the group, right? So let's see. Right? Now, most of the time when people are being difficult, we also need to take into consideration their state of mind, right? Are they having a really, frustrating moment? Are they just unwell, right? They're not in the right state of mind. They're really tired. And which could be the reason why that difficult behavior is coming out, right? Has that ever happened to you? Think about that. Right? When you're not in a good state of mind, you're not feeling well, right? You don't take things in a positive way most of the time, correct? And this can make someone come across as being difficult, right? So do we want to take that into consideration, right? That is the whole point, right? Now, most of the time, this person may just be defending their ego. They don't want to give up on their stand, or they want to protect their face, save their face in a situation, and they just don't want to give up, right? Do we do that when we are in such a situation? We just, we have so much pride that we don't want other people to kind of show us down, right? Could that be the reason why this person is being difficult? That's something that we need to think about, right? And very simple, and one of the most common reasons is that this person is just in a bad mood, maybe not having a good day, right? Now, I'm sure when things are not going your way, right? It's a very busy day at work. You've had a lot of tasks that you have to complete, and it's not the best day for you, right? And when someone approaches you and asks you for help, or to take care of an additional activity, think about the way we might react to them in that situation, right? So very simply, it could be a person's situation that is making him or her kind of react in a difficult manner. Okay. Now, this is also something that you need to consider. If they have been treated poorly in a similar situation before, are they drawing out of their experience that they had the last time when they were dealing with such a situation, right? Maybe someone wasn't nice to them, right? Or something didn't work out in their favor the last time they faced a similar situation that you are dealing with this so-called difficult person, right? So think about that. Think about how you would feel if you were in their shoes. Okay, and this is also a reality. They simply don't understand or speak the language really well, and this could be any language, right? Let's take English for example. Now, we as Indians, not everyone speaks English as their first language, right? So people around us may not be able to verbalize their thoughts as efficiently or as clearly as you might want them to, and this they notice, and they will feel that you are not able to understand them, and that can build in some sort of resent within them, and that may come out as a difficult behavior, or something that you say they may not be able to understand, and that communication gap can make things difficult between the both of you, right? So a language gap, if we think, is very common. Think about a situation where you have traveled to another city, right, and you're having difficulty communicating, right? Who do you think is being difficult there, right? You may feel the person on the other side is difficult, but if you look at it from their point of view, it's us, right? Okay, and also, this person may be new to such a scenario. They have never experienced this before. They don't know how to react, to that situation, and they're just going with the flow. They're trying to defend themselves. They're trying to protect themselves, right? And that could come across as something difficult for us to deal with, right? And also, someone is not just having a bad day; they're having a bad life. Right? Now, this is a big point to make. Correct? Now, as we know, people have different living conditions. We have been brought up differently. The environment, that we grow up in are different. The financial situations, the family, the circle of friends that one may have, right? The situations that one has had to deal with over their life can be really, really difficult, and that kind of has conditioned them in a certain way, right? That they come across as strong according to them, or weak in certain scenarios, right? So an insight into understanding a little about that person can kind of really helps you get clarity and understand why is this person displaying certain behaviors, right? And finally, right, we all see different things in the world and in a different way, right? Everyone has their own perceptions. Sometimes we agree with certain points of view of certain people, and we do not agree with few other people, right? So it again could be based on their experiences, their attitude towards life in general, right? They just don't see everything the way that you see. And I think in a way that can be appreciated if you are open and you can deal with such situations and such people much more effectively if you're able to understand this, right? But these are just some of the points, that kind of make people difficult to deal with, right? If you have any more points that you would like to add, please feel free to post them on the chat window and I'll be happy to share them with the rest of the group. Right? I'll give you about 20 seconds for you to kind of come up and post any similar reasons or points that you may have. Okay, so I have um, Tasneem Shama. I think I assume your first name is Shama. She has posted something here. Let me read that out for you. Some people don't understand how to differentiate between professional and personal relationship. Very nice. And yeah, I completely agree with that. They tend to behave and expect, unprofessionally at work. Very true. And that's because there is no clear boundary between a personal and a professional life. You may be different at home, right? But when you are at work, there are certain expectations that come with business etiquette, if you have to talk about, right? Because you're working with people who need to kind of cooperate with you. You need their cooperation. So understanding how to balance that is really, really important. Thank you, Shama. I have Sudhir, who says, being judgmental with preconceived notions. Absolutely. Thank you for that, Sudhir. Right? So we come with our own ideas of how things are. We judge people too early, too often, right? And that can kind of, make things difficult for people to work with others. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next slide. Right now, we have kind of explored a few reasons, that kind of make people seem difficult. Right now, what do we do in such a situation? Right now, I feel the best way to start is to not judge people too early. Right, just like the law says, innocent until proven guilty, right? Difficult people are also innocent until proven difficult, right? So how do we come to this final judgment, if you will, right? So ask a few questions to yourselves, right? When you come across someone who's being difficult to you, how much do we really know about that person's life or their background, right? We discussed this a little bit in the previous slide, right? Maybe once you get a better insight into that person's background, where they are from, yeah, who's in their family, what kind of upbringing they had, it can give you a completely new view, into this person's life and their behavior, and you will start to understand and connect these reasons to their behavior, which will help you kind of deal with them in a much better way. Now remember, at the end of the day, dealing with difficult people isn't giving them, showing them a stick and keeping them away from you. No, we have such people everywhere. It's impossible to avoid them, right? So what is the outcome that you're expecting? You want to build a better relationship with them, right? That is the whole idea of this exercise, isn't it, right? So try and understand a little about that person's background, right? How many different reasons could explain the person's behavior? Ask yourself that, right? Why is this person being angry now? Right? What could have happened that led to this? Right? Why is this person being unreasonable? Why aren't they listening? Right? Is it too much work? Is it the work pressure? Do they have a bad boss? Right? Maybe they had a bad argument with their spouse, right? There could be several reasons, right? It may not always be possible to kind of, intrude into someone's personal life, but, from observation and common sense, we will be able to kind of understand a lot more about a person's behavior, if you're willing to, right? And also question your perception, right? How accurate is it? Now, we discussed earlier that we see things the way we want to see. Everyone sees things differently. Correct? Is your perception clouding your judgment? Right? That's something that you want to ask yourself. Right? This is a very good activity to do. Right? Bring in someone who is neutral, someone who is not connected to you, or the person who is being difficult according to you. Right? And check, would that person have similar view as you do about the situation or about that person, right? Now this will kind of clear up any problems related to perception that you've had, right? You'll get a different perspective into that behavior or that situation that you had to deal with, right? So try and take help. A neutral person, someone who is not going to judge you for taking help from them, right? Okay. Also, have you been giving the person the benefit of doubt, or are you just assuming they have a negative intention? Right? Now, benefit of doubt does not mean that you accept negative behavior. You're okay with how they repeatedly try and put you down or make things miserable for you. It does not mean allowing that to happen, right? But just about considering the reasons. Yeah, in this situation today, now, right? Could there be another reason why this is happening? Right? And don't always assume that they come with bad intentions, right? Maybe it's just the way they communicate, right? Maybe changing our style, right? Doing things, differently, which are in our control, can actually ease the situation. That's something that we can explore, right? Also, does your emotional reaction change as you consider alternative, options, right? Expectations. So if you had to, look at a different way of dealing with somebody, will you still react the same way? Will you still feel that this person is being difficult, right? And finally, right, if you were in the other person's place, in the other person's situation, right, how would you react? Is it possible that we will be even more difficult, yeah, or probably worse than what they are being to us? Right? So think about that. Put yourself in the other person's shoe. Try and see the situation from their eyes. Right? It can really change, the perception that you've had about this person, and kind of will help you empathize and connect with this person at a much more emotional level, right? Which again is going to help build and heal that troubled relationship that you've had. Right? So if you have any points that you would like to share about this, please feel free to post your points on the chat window. Okay, and I will take them up. In the interest of time, I'm going to move on to the next slide. Right now, let's look at types of difficult people. Now, you may see 6 listed out here, but like I said, these are just generalizations. We have tried to kind of group people into categories based on the most common behaviors that someone exhibits. Someone who seems difficult, what are the characteristics that one displays, and we have kind of grouped them into these types, as you would call them, right? So there are 6 that we're going to focus on today. There are many more, like I told you earlier, with very funny and creative names that you can find, right? But the whole idea is to be able to observe people and understand them, right? Understand the behavior and come up with solutions. If someone is being difficult in a certain way, how do I approach that person? How do I resolve that tension, right? Which is the whole intention of the workshop here, right? So let's look at the types of people. To start with, the people who think they know it all, right? And next you have people who are very passive, okay? And then we have the dictators, the bossy people, okay? And people who always say yes. And this may not seem like a problem now, right? But we'll see how this can create an issue and how these people can be difficult, right? We have a couple of more participants who have joined us. Welcome to the webinar. We have already begun, as you can see, right? In case you have any questions, you can feel free to post them on the chat window, and I'll be more than happy to answer them. Okay. All right. Let's move on. So the next person. So we have the yes people. Who's next? The no people. People who always say no. Right. And finally, the gripers. Now these are the people who usually complain a lot. Yeah, they're grumpy most of the time, right? So I'm sure just by looking at this slide, you have already kind of in your mind categorized people in your life into one of these buckets already, right? Or at work, yeah, or your friends, anyone, correct? So the idea is, how do we recognize, these behaviors? How are we going to approach them? Which is what we want, right? Now, each type has its own set of characteristics, that make them unique, right? And you'll learn more about these as we go on. Okay. One thing that I would also want you to do is, check if you see yourself in any of these categories, right? And I think that's a very good place to start before we deal with others, right? Understand who we are, who we come across as to other people, right? So try and do that. Now keep in mind that as we explore these categories, we are focusing on difficult aspects of the person, right? That's what is the entire focus on, right? Now what you also need to remember is no one is difficult, all the time, right? Now many of these traits that we're going to discuss are usually positive aspects of the person, right? They just seem difficult because they're not helping us, right? Now, as you know, you should always highlight the positive area of any person. Now, it's not within our power to change someone, right? But what we can do is control our own reactions, right? So that being said, let's look at the first personality type, right? The know-it-all. Okay. Now, while usually not visible all the time, the know-it-all person's behavior may include, lack of cooperation. They will refuse to cooperate. They may come across as being arrogant, right? And they have this general belief that they are, experts at everything, right? And I'm sure you can think of someone, who come across as a person who knows it all that you have to deal with, right? Now, they can be dominators. They usually dominate, and things don't work out. They will, try and resort to insults, right? And most often than not, for such people, their bark is often worse than their bite. So, they can be really harsh in the way they speak, right? They just want to show off all the knowledge that they have. And most of the time, they really don't know everything, right? They are generally self-appointed experts, right? And it is difficult for them to admit that they, may not know everything after all. Right? Now, while working with, a person who falls into this category, it can be helpful, first of all, to help them see other people's point of view. Right now, if you're working in a group, it's important that these people get an opportunity to kind of view the opinions that other people have, right? Points that other people have, and not just their own, right? Now, most of the time, the know-it-alls, they're not aware. They're not aware of how they're coming across, right? They just feel that, okay, I know what I'm saying. I have more information than you do, okay, and they are eager to share their knowledge, right? Now, one thing you need to appreciate is that most of them really have that knowledge about whatever, topic or situation is it that you're dealing with. They do come with some amount of information, and it's important that you first appreciate that, right? You want this person on your side, don't you? Right? Now, this is a valuable asset, as a person in your group, right? Someone you can go to in case you have difficult questions, and this person will feel really, really happy if you kind of appreciate the knowledge that they have. Yeah, but they can really be a pain, if the setting isn't right. Correct? So maybe they just don't know how they're coming across, right? And how you can show them this is by paraphrasing the statements that they make, for example, right? So what will happen by paraphrasing what they say is that it'll first of all help the others in the group understand this person's points much better, right? They will interpret what is being said clearly, and this will also allow this person to kind of realize, okay, this is how someone understood what I just said, right? It's like showing a mirror to this person, right? So most importantly, it's a waste of time to kind of argue with a person like this, right? Because you're not going to get anywhere. He or she is going to, hold on to their stand and tell you, no, 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 I know what I'm talking about, right? And that is not something that's going to move this relationship forward. So appreciate the knowledge that they have, use it in as many places as you can, as many situations as you can, make this person your friend, right? However, if things get difficult, try to make them see other people's point of view, right? Of course, this will take rapport, it will, need a lot of comforting through the relationship building stage. Also, help them see how they come across to other people, right? So let's move on to the second category, right? Now they are the passives. Right? Now this group will either say nothing or they say something, that is inconsequential, right? Now they will hardly tell you what they think or what they feel, right? They almost never share their ideas. Their responses are very, very limited, right? Most of the time their communication is usually limited to groans and grunts, things like that, right? Now on a really good day, you may also get them to say a yes or a no. That's a really good day, and sometimes you can bet that they will not even say that, right? Now, examples of passive individuals are those who kind of sit quietly with, while others are throwing insults at them, right? These people do not like to confront others, right? They're very soft-spoken, right? And you will notice that their voice keeps declining. If they have to stand up for themselves, they may start with a loud voice, but they kind of start to disappear, right? So they don't like to confront. The whole purpose is to avoid an argument. They don't want to be in the spotlight in any way, right? Passive people often go to great lengths to avoid any type of confrontation, right? Even while dealing with people who are close to them, right? Now, for example, a passive person, may not be comfortable dealing with difficult relationships in a face-to-face, environment or even over the phone. They end relationships usually over a text mail or an email, right? Now, they may also feel guilty about upsetting or disappointing others, right? Which can also be the reason why they do not want to interact, right? Now, how is this difficult? You will not get them to commit. You will not get their point of view. You don't know what they think about a situation, and that's how they become difficult to deal with, right? Now, some people just feel intimidated by people who have no really strong personalities, right? Usually they are quiet, and if there is someone else with a stronger personality, they will just go into a shell and never come out, right? Some of them simply want to avoid problems and they will just hope, crossing their fingers and hope that the problem will go away. Right? So these people will never give you ideas. Instead, they will accept and comply with people. Right? They want to please others. That comes out of the fear of being rejected. Right? So usually, people like these kind of have grown up in families, with a lot of children, where they may have been neglected, right? Or their parents might have been really strict or even very controlling, right? Now that could be a reason why they are passive in nature, right? When you come across people like this, the first thing you want to do is show compassion, right? You don't want to put a person who's already so low, right? You want to encourage them, right? Give them an opportunity to speak. Yeah, a lot of reassurance is required, right? You want to respect their opinion whenever they point it out, right? Now it all depends on how important this relationship is to you, right? Now passive people may not be bad people, right? Most of the time they aren't. Correct. But you have the passive aggressive type who are quiet, yeah, on the outside, but they can really hold a grudge, right, inside. But most of the time they're just quiet. They just need somebody to kind of comfort them, right, encourage them, right. Now, passive people can be challenging to engage in a conversation or in a discussion, right. So if you want to kind of break that ice, right, start them off in smaller groups, right, so that they are much more comfortable. Okay, okay, they're much more comfortable, and ask open-ended questions which will allow them to speak. Right, easy questions to start them off with. Avoid a yes or a no kind of a question. Right, acknowledge positively whatever they say, whatever they share. Right, encourage them so that they are open to engage in the future. Right. So let's look at the next type, the dictators. Right, dictators. are very bossy. They tend to be very, very hardcore about how things work around them, right? They may appear to be very hostile. They can be abusive. They can seem like a bully. They can intimidate other people, right? Now, dictators have, they have a drive to prove themselves to others, right? There is a need to prove themselves, and they often believe that everything is their way or it's the highway, my way or the highway, right? So what they do, they bully and intimidate, and they expect everyone else to kind of comply. Right? Now, unfortunately, many such people have become leaders, and you will see that through history, right? Dictators, the term itself kind of says that. Now, contrary to what we might think, most of the time behind this mask that they're wearing, right, that they show the public, within they are usually very wounded. They have this feeling of being abandoned. They may actually be really weak from inside, right? They may have grown up in in a violent environment at home. They may not have received the love and affection that many other people have. So this makes them rough and kind of they hold that grudge against people, against society, and that's coming out in their behaviors. Now, while dealing with dictators, the first thing you want to do is to remember to take a deep breath, to calm yourself down, right? Because it's not going to be easy to deal with a person like this, right? So control your nerves, okay, and your emotions, because it's easy. Things can really go out of hand if you get into an argument or if you're trying to kind of take them head on. That things may not work out in your favor, right? They have a difficult time when people use statements like, I feel, things like that. They don't really like, because they work from an area with no emotions, right? Feeling free environment, right? Now, they also need to know that everyone has heard their point of view, so acknowledge what they say, right? And they also want to kind of realize that everyone has understood what they are telling them, right? So reinforce understanding with people like this. Approach them with concrete plans of action. Don't go to them with something that isn't clear. Don't go to them with a plan that is vague. Yeah, clear, cut out actions. Everything has its place, and you have thought of all the consequences before you go approach them with a new idea. Right? Okay. Let's move on to the next, the yes people. Right? Now, like I told you earlier, they may come across as someone very easy to work with, right? Because they kind of agree to everything, right? They seem to be the easiest to work with. But just because they appear to be agreeing, right, with a lot of enthusiasm, right, it does not mean that it is truly how they feel. They are just hesitating to say a no. They're saying yes because they don't like saying no to you, correct? And what you want to do is actually be attentive to their body language, the non-verbal cues that this person is putting out. For example, their body language, the posture, right? Are they rolling their eyes, when they're actually saying a yes, right? Yeah, their brain is telling them something else, but they're not used to saying no, correct? And they sigh every time you tell them something, you give them an activity, they go like, oh, okay, fine, right? So such behavior, you want to pay attention to that. Okay, this will help you kind of understand whether this person really wants to say yes or not, right? So yes, people always want the group they are in with to kind of get along, right? And they will agree just to avoid any arguments. They don't want any, confrontations or any disagreements. They usually take on more than they actually can, right? And what does this lead to? This leads to, failing to meet deadlines. They take on so much that they're not able to kind of take care of all the activities, right? Now they agree to any commitment with a lot of enthusiasm. However, most often they do not actually mean it, and you can't trust them to kind of follow through. Right? They may have very good intentions, but it might end up making you resentful and angry later. Right? So do yourself a favor and don't ask them for things that that they will not be able to commit to. That's the first thing, right? Instead, invite them when they can still give a helping hand. You know that they can really help, only then bring them in, right? Along with the others, right? Who are more reliable, so that they are not showing up, and they will not ruin your plans, right? Alternatively, you can simply stop asking them for help, right, when it's not required. Now, if you're married or if you're in a relationship with a person, a yes person, you may know that it's not easy to change, and especially they will not respond to nagging. There's no point in nagging these people or offering long explanations. It will not work, right? You will need to be a little more creative and find what they enjoy helping with. Now they really want to help. Okay, great. Let's give them opportunities to help, right? But finding the right opportunity is what is required. Right? So when working with these people, remember to set clear expectations. Right? They need to be reminded that you appreciate them taking on tasks and saying yes, but that does not mean that they are entitled to being lenient. Right? And you will not accept excuses later. Right? That needs to be very, very clear. Always work towards a win-win solution with people like these. It's often best not to allow them to take on too much, as they can easily become weighted down, and that can lead to discouragement. Right? And if possible, help them to say no to things. Right? So the next people, the yes people were easy. The no people, yes people always agree, right? While the people have who fall into this category have a difficult time saying yes, right? So they never seem to be able to say yes in person or in groups, right? Now these people are always finding the negative, they're always finding faults and reasons why something will not be successful. These are the people who tell you this will not work, man. No, 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 this is not going to happen, right? They're quick to point out fault, but they hardly ever have a solution, right? They will tell you what's wrong, but do they have a solution? Most of the time they do not, right? So they usually go by the book. They are good with the rules, right? They go by the book, okay, and that limits them. They are not able to think outside the box. There is no creative solutions or no creative thinking that comes with such people. Right? So how do you deal with the no people? Now, if you have heard of this expression, kill them with kindness, I think that will work to some extent, in a positive way, right? So one thing to always remember with the no people is that the last thing you want to do is get into an argument or a heated discussion with a no person, right? This will only strengthen their resolve against the negativity, right? Don't allow the no people to work independently, right, or in isolation, because they will become more apt to come across a single challenge. They'll find a single challenge and they will stop the entire process. They will not be able to move forward with a solution, right? Great. So let's look at the last category that we have here, the gripers, right? Now, the griper category have people who are grumpy, they're grouches, they whine a lot, yeah, poor me kind of people. Now, you're sure to know some of these, I'm sure, right? Now, these people are usually quite negative. They tend to blame everything on bad luck, right? And they love to complain. Their only mission kind of seems to be to throw a bucket of cold water on anyone who is enthusiastic. So they will curb, someone's enthusiasm, right? It's almost as if they have an attitude disease, and what you got to look out for is that it's contagious. It can spread easily. Negativity spreads very, very fast, right? And they're always looking for a chance to say, yeah, I told you so, right? So when you have a person like this who complains a lot, it can really bring everyone down, including you, right? Now, when working with gripers, the first thing you want to remember is to remain positive, even if things are getting difficult. You do not want that negativity to rub off onto you, right? If you do not stay positive, they will only feed off the negativity that you have, right? So these people enjoy arguments because it allows them, more time to complain about things. So don't argue with them, right? Avoid confronting these gripers, right? Also, if they have hurt somebody, you don't have to apologize to others for their behavior, right? Allow those people, the other people in the group, to make their own assumptions, right, about this person. Do not spread negativity about someone to others, right? Now that's because you cannot control, their behavior. Finally, if things get really difficult, simply ask them. Right? This is a question that you can ask them. What do you hope to accomplish with all this complaining and negativity? Right? Ask them what is the purpose, and that will give them some bit of clarity. Okay, what is it that I'm going to get by complaining so much? Right? It will help them cut out those complaints, at least to you. Right? So these were the six main categories that we looked at. I'm sure we all can agree that we could spend days and hours together listing out and describing a lot more different characters like this. Right? So the idea is for you to kind of recognize behaviors like this and understand how you will work with them, a strategy to deal with them. Right? So it can be discouraging when you have a lot of negative people around you, right? But when you know the right methods to deal with, a certain situation or certain people, you can definitely make things better for you, right? So there are a number of strategies that one can use, and if used effectively, you will be astonished how well they will work, right? So let's quickly look at a few quick strategies that you can adopt, right? Now we've already looked at a few earlier. However, there are a few more that I would like to share, starting with this: creating an inner shield. That's just what it says. You build a personal shield, right, which is strong enough to kind of allow only what you choose to kind of break it, right? This is what you can control, right? What you as an individual will allow in. So you are not going to let all these negative behaviors, negative people affect you or your decisions, right? Or your personality. Allowing yourself to be vulnerable to these difficult people who come into your life, right, is to allow the negative things that they are bringing with them into your life, right? So you want to shield such people and such behavior, right? Now this may not be easy because some of these people are very close to us, right? But generally life isn't easy. You got to begin now, and by using some of the ideas that we're going to discuss, you will kind of start to construct your own shield, which can last a lifetime, right? Now one of the best ones to use is the power of words, right? Their words are really powerful, and they can be used to defend yourself or maybe support your point of view, right? You can learn to use words skillfully and make them your ally, right? For example, taking the time to choose your words wisely can often stop someone who's complaining right in their tracks, right? Choosing your words carefully can also make them open up and allow you to know what they're really thinking, right? Which will help you deal with that person or that situation in a much better manner, right? The next strategy is negotiation. Right? What does negotiation mean? It simply means getting past or dealing with something in a successful manner, right? Now, that is what it's all about, right? Being successful, isn't it, right? Now, our life is one big negotiation right from the time you begin your day till the day ends. Right? You're working, your way out to make bargains for whatever you need. Right? Knowing how we exhibit difficult behavior first, right? Knowing how we can be difficult will lead you to understand how to diffuse this behavior in other people. Now you probably have a good idea of what has happened, to get you past your difficult behavior yourself, or at least you would have liked for how things should have worked out, right? Now this knowledge will kind of help you deal with the needs of this difficult person. That if you begin by trying to understand what their needs are or what drives this person to be difficult, you are at a better chance of negotiating a solution with them, right? And kind of arrive at what you expect out of that whole interaction, right? Let's look at the next one, listening. Right? Now, listening, as you know, is a very important foundation when it comes to good communication. If you are truly listening, you will hear what they are really trying to say, and sometimes if you listen closely, you will also be able to hear what they're not saying. Right? That's through observation. Right? Listen to what their body language is telling you. It speaks really, really clearly. Okay. Sometimes it can be very difficult, to listen to people when there are a lot of distractions or you have preconceived notions about them, right? In situations like that, keep it very simple. Just ask the person, right? If you have something that you want to know, ask a question in a very nice, polite manner. What this does is this puts the responsibility on them and completely away from you. And if they cannot provide an answer right then, you can tell them, when you're ready to talk about it, I'm here to listen. Come to me later, right? So you can kind of let that situation, handle that situation maybe at a later time, and that person is in a much more comfortable state of mind, right? So by using something along the lines, I'm here to listen to you, or if you have any challenges, come to me. We'll kind of work it out. By using an approach like this, it will be much more easier for you to deal with people who are being difficult, right? And finally, the last one, which is humor. Now, this is quite powerful. What happens is when you search for something funny or amusing in a difficult situation, what it does is it takes the drama right out, right? It eases things up immediately. It can, really temper those aggressive feelings, right? That's what humor can do, right? Now, what it does is it lets you take control of your own mood, of your own state of mind, but you have to remember to use it very wisely, right? Now, humor, if it's not used correctly, it can backfire, right? The trick is to use humor to keep it positive. Right? Think of it like this. Don't use it as a weapon, right? Think of it like this. If a difficult person feels that you're laughing at them and not with them, it's like you're building a bomb that's going to explode anytime. It's not like diffusing a bomb, right? So remember that humor is a powerful weapon and you should always use it appropriately, right? So get your timing right, and know when to crack a joke, right? But humor can really help, ease relationships. It can make other people comfortable. They know that you're funny. They're going to join in, and you don't know how that relationship is going to evolve later, right? So these were some quick strategies, and before we kind of close it, this is the last slide that I want to take you guys through. It's a model called CLEAR, right? Every letter here stands for something. It's an acronym, and we'll quickly explore these 5 elements here and understand how you can build better relationships with people, to avoid difficult situations overall, right? So starting with connection. Now connection is everything, right? We're talking about interpersonal connection. Now how do you build connection with someone, right? Through rapport, right? So you establish rapport or you build an understanding with the people around you, right? Sometimes we go through phases, where we either don't like other people or we are not likable ourselves, right? So rapport is necessary to kind of bring your focus on something that you can appreciate about the other person. Right? It might be as simple as a trait, a character trait, or a talent that you admire about that person. So talk about that, build that connection between you both, right? So that person considers you as non-threatening, as a friend, and your relationship may become much better, and that person may not be as difficult with you at least, right? So you'll probably notice that the differences, you feel, when you're much more connected with the other person will be awesome, right? The next one is listening. We already spoke about listening a little bit, right? So try and get as much information about the other person, right? Try to be more open. Yeah? Don't be defensive when you're trying to listen. Don't come with notions in your mind already, right? Let them express their point of view. Don't start judging them early on, right? So what you need to do is practice listening and learn to make a real effort in understanding and hearing what the other person is actually saying, right? Don't just listen to the words. Focus on the tone. Focus on the way they are saying things, right? Now, one trick is to imagine as though you're listening to, you're hearing the words from the smartest or the most admirable person that you know. You can trick yourself into, patiently listening to this person. If you admire a person, then there's a better chance that you listen to them, right? So get yourself into that state of mind. This will allow you to kind of, take in all the information that's coming to you, right? The next one, empathy, or being able to empathize with people. Right now, this goes along really well with the previous skill that we spoke about, which is listening. Right? Now, empathy is being able to put yourself in someone else's situation, right? Seeing how something looks from their point of view, right? You must have heard of this cliche, right? Uh, Getting into someone else's shoe. It's not just about putting yourself in someone else's shoes. It's about walking a mile in those shoes, right? Only then will you realize how it feels to be on the other side of the fence, right? So to show them that you really and truly understand what they're feeling is very, very important, right? If you cannot see others' point of view, ask a question, but don't confront them. Ask them in a very polite manner, right? It's important that you be sincere when you're empathizing, right? Focus on the words and the feelings, that are coming out when they're speaking to you, right? And when you're speaking to them as well, right? So empathy is like receiving a nice warm hug, right? So when someone is going through difficult times, right, and they're being difficult, right, empathy can really calm them down, right? It can break that ice that's there between two people, right? So and empathy will kind of enhance self-worth, right? It will help build a much more harmonious and trustful relationships with people, right? And next one, acknowledgement, right? Acknowledgements of thoughts, feelings, or even complaints that others have, right? Don't ignore them. This does not necessarily mean that you agree with everything, but you can validate what you heard, right? It is easy to expect someone to do this for you, right? But it's not also easy to ignore acknowledging a person when you are disagreeing with them, right? So tell them, I understand what you're saying. I heard what you said, right? I can appreciate what you're saying, right? And then talk about your counter, okay? So in order to kind of feel heard, you must feel it is safe to talk. So when you allow people to express their points and when you acknowledge them, it becomes much more easier, right? So a good way to go ahead is combine empathy and acknowledgement. Okay, it can act as a balm that can heal difficult and angry situations. Right? Now, finally, The last bit, request, right? Now, when you're working towards being successful in any area, right, it's a good plan to use the technique of requesting rather than demanding, most of the time. Now, a request is asking someone to do something, right? But when you demand, you put yourself in a corner, right? What happens is if that demand is declined, you demand something and that person says, no, I'm not going to do it, it can cause irreversible damage in that relationship. You will hate that person forever, right? So try a much softer approach. Request them. If they say no, it's fine. They most probably will give you a reason, right? I think I have a question that's coming in. I will take that question very soon. I'm almost done with that. So we were talking about how requesting works better than than being demanding, right? So what will happen is demanding will make the other people kind of resist any idea that you put forth, right? And this will show up in their attitude. Right? So what happens is when you try to control too much, it leads to resentment, and you're not going to get any cooperation from the other people, right? So that's pretty much it. That's the clear model. What we've tried to look at is a better plan for you to kind of handle difficult people instead of just asking them to take a walk, right? So this will as a skill, if you're able to practice this, understand this, right, and treat different people who come with different behavioral characteristics differently in the right way, then I definitely feel that you're going to be much more successful, in your personal relationships and in your work relationships, right? So I'm hoping that all of you will go back and look at more information on how to deal with difficult people and kind of start practicing this once you go back. Right? Great. So we've just about crossed an hour. I'm looking at taking questions that you have. Right. So I have a question from Suhaib. It says, I have a doubt. Let's say manager asks me to do some task with plan A, which is very long process and is a harder way. And the subordinate gives me an easier plan to complete the task with the same results. Which one should I take? Okay. My manager's idea or my subordinate's idea to complete the task. Now that's a good question, isn't it? Now, let me rephrase that. So the question is, uh, your manager has asked you to work on something, a task in a certain way. He has prescribed a plan, right? And you know that it's going to be a hard and a long process to do, right? But you have an alternative which has been offered to you by another person, maybe a subordinate, right? Which will accomplish the task, but in a much easier way, right? How should you proceed, right? Now, I'm sure you realize at the end of the day, the completion of the task is most important, right? But what happens is if you're going to go challenge your manager and tell him or her that I have a better plan, there is an easier way to do this, right? It may work, it may not work, depending on the kind of person your manager is, right? So what you want to do is take a much subtle approach, right? You have to go to your manager and show that this is this is an alternative that we have found, and what are the benefits to it. Now he's not going to simply accept the plan, right? He's going to ask you, why is this better than the plan I offered you, right? So go back with a clear idea of how your plan, how the other plan is different, right? How much time it can save, how much less effort it's going to take, if it's going to give you better results, talk about that, right? And this is where your negotiation comes in. You do not want to show, if you're going to your manager with an intention to show that your plan is not good, it's not going to work, right? Next time he's going to give you a much more difficult plan, right? So of course, take the easier plan, but it's a good idea that you maintain that working relationship with your manager, right? At the end of the day, he is your manager. He's going to do your appraisals and give you ratings, right? So be friendly, go to them, show them the benefit of the plan B, and I'm sure it's going to work out, right? I hope that answers your question, Suhail. Okay. Are there any other questions that we have? Okay, I'm going to wait for 2 more minutes. You're welcome, Suhail. I'm going to wait for 2 more minutes to see if I have any other questions, and then we definitely have to wind up because we have kind of exceeded the 1 hour time limit.
Hi Randhir, this is Shamma. I was wondering if I can get this module over email.
Okay, Shama, I heard you, over the voice, so I can make an arrangement to have this session sent to you. Okay, I'll check if we can email this to you. Awesome, great. You're welcome, Shama. All right, any more questions? Okay, so I think we can wind up the session. You're welcome, Jyoti. I hope the webinar was helpful. I hope you're taking back some things, some techniques and tools that you're going to try and implement from today. Right? Go find those people who are difficult. Remember to ask those right questions to yourselves. Right? Do not judge too early, right? And give people a chance to kind of build relationships rather than ruin them. All right, great. You're welcome, Ramesh. So if you would like to get in touch with us, please write to us. Our email address is events@bodhi.com, or you can call us on the number that you see on the screen. That's 9900011603. Right? Thank you very much for joining us. I wish you the best of luck. Right? Have a good day, guys.